Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is Carol Santelli, your host. For many of us, living without pain and feeling totally comfortable, completely undressed is rare. Many of us attempt so many diets either to look good, feel good, heal, or to maintain good health, and yet many of us also run into confusion as to what is good nutrition, what's best to help with pain or depression or our health, or looking good naked. Most of us also know how feelings, whether of pain or any insecurities of being naked, can affect many areas of our lives, and relationships actually. Billions of dollars a year are really spent on multiple therapies and solutions, aesthetics, plastic surgeries, makeup, diet, supplements, clothing. I could go on. And fear and frustration and feelings of unworthiness and insecurity and struggle and the cost, both financial, personal, and professional, and so much more can set in. So let me share that there is help and there are answers. About a month ago, I had the great pleasure of meeting Dr. Debbie Bright. Dr. Debbie is a chiropractic physician with a master's in nutrition and human performance. She specializes in weight loss via functional medicine and pain relief via functional rehabilitation. She's located in San Diego, California. So if you want to learn Nutrition 101, and if you want to look naked and live pain-free, you're going to be happy that you joined us today. And with that, I'd very much like to welcome Dr. Debbie Bright. Welcome, Doctor.
Hi, Carol. Thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely. So, now I know that a lot of what I just mentioned are very much needed answers, so I'm looking forward to that. But I'm wondering if you could clear up for us to begin with, what is functional medicine and functional rehabilitation?
Absolutely. So I'm going to kind of dive into this and explain the two separately and then kind of tie it in with how I use it as a whole.
Perfect.
Great. So first, let's address functional rehab. And before I can really dive into functional rehab, I think it would be better for the listeners to understand how functional movement plays into functional rehab. So functional movement is the ability to move your body with proper muscle and joint function for effortless, pain-free movement. So we must be biomechanically efficient with everything we do, whether it's in sports or athletics, any general fitness, daily lifestyle activities. It's very important to maintain good movement to be able to avoid injury. And, this could range anywhere from being a skilled soccer player, weightlifter, Olympic athlete, anything to that extreme, all the way down to, Grandma Betty trying to walk around her house, or a mother being able to pick her baby up off the floor. And in my office, everyone is considered an athlete because we all move in similar fashions, right? We all are going to hip hinge. We're all, we squat to pick stuff up. We push things, we pull things, we carry heavy things, we lift things like our grocery, our luggage when we travel. We're all performing athletic movements to some degree or another, whether it's actually in a sport or in everyday living. So you would think that automatically our bodies would just work well, right? But generally, this is not always the case. And what I mean by that is that, from birth, we begin to develop some muscles that tend to be more dominant and ones that tend to be more weaker or inhibited just through certain types of movement that we do. So if I have a patient come in that's experiencing shoulder pain or hip pain, I sit down with them and we ask, hey, talk to your parents. How much belly time were you given as a baby? Were you allowed to develop proper hip stabilization and shoulder stabilization? So you're a throwing athlete. How did you move as a baby? That is playing into, how you're moving in your teenage years, in your 20s and 30s, as you age. And then we look at things like, how strong of a core do you have? And when it comes down to, functional rehabilitation and functional movement, I'm not necessarily talking about like the size of a person's muscles or how fit they are. That really doesn't matter to me as much as, looking at how their brain is choosing different movement patterns. I'm talking about how their brain chooses the most efficient way to get a person from point A to point B. Does that make sense?
It does. It's very interesting.
Yeah, because our bodies are very good at getting us from point A to point B, but, we're not going to be necessarily inhibited on how we get there. It's that we're going to get there, but how are we going to do it in the most efficient way? So, today everyone's walking around in what I like to call texting posture. And I'm sure if you just look at the kids these days, they're so technology bound. They're literally walking around. Their heads are forward. Their shoulders are rounded. They've got shortened, chest muscles. We sit at computers for many hours a day. Carol, I'm sure like when you're, doing the recordings in your interviews, you're probably at your computer for many hours trying to work on and edit this stuff, right?
You're hitting that right on the nose.
Right. And, as a chiropractic physician, I often say, do as I say, not as I do, because I can definitely coach functional movement. And then my chiropractic friends come around and they're like, Deb, you got to clean up that posture. You've been sitting too long working on your meal plans for patients. And I'm like, hey, I see myself in pictures and I'm like, oh my God, I need to do my own rehab. Right. So, anyway, so we end up with these rounded shoulders, weak inhibited back muscles, our heads lean too far forward. And we rarely get into these opened up, uprighted postures. And because of that, this lack of proper movement, is showing up as pain. And we know now that movement heals. So patients often will go to their doctor and say that they're in some sort of pain with their shoulder, their hip, they're getting headaches, whatever, and they're told to go home and rest. And sure, I can appreciate rest. Like, we're in a society, we need to really utilize rest sometimes. But when it comes to functional movement, unless it's an overuse injury, then, in that case, rest is really great. But a lot of people are so sedentary, at their desk, sitting at home, watching TV, whatever, that they end up being in pain because they actually need movement, not rest. So in my office, if you're coming in with pain, I'm going to look at how you move. A typical visit is going to address treating soft tissue, which consists of your muscles, ligaments, fascia. Then we're going to do chiropractic manipulation to simply restore motion to joints that aren't moving so well. And finally, we're going to do some rehab exercises that help train your brain to choose more efficient movement patterns. This is known as neuroplasticity. It's that you can actually change the way your brain chooses to do things. Now, I have found that when you marry these three principles, patients get out of pain quickly and it keeps them healthy for much longer. So it's a terrible business model, right? I'm not the chiropractor that says you have to come back 3 times a week for the rest of your life. I know it makes me less money. It's terrible for me, right? But my patients get better quickly. They stay better longer, and they don't need me all the time, which I think is the right way to treat. And, they come back whenever they want to take on preventative measures or they're interested in enhanced sports performance. So that, in a nutshell, Carol, that's functional rehabilitation. Does that make sense?
It does. I have a question for you, though.
Yes.
When you mentioned about as an infant, as an infant. Okay, so does that pertain also to everything that happens from infancy on, or is it really something in the way that we are held or move when we're as a child that just carries completely through to adult or teen?
That's a super great question. I actually just posted last night on my Facebook and Instagram account an article that was put up by Dr. Perry Nichols. He's a chiropractor. He's famous in my world for his Stop Chasing Pain stuff and or work. And the article is really great because it was talking about like mastering the floor first. And in my office, I do a technique called DNS, Dynamic Neuromuscular Stabilization. It's based out of Prague. And what the physiotherapists over there are learning and then coming to the U.S. and teaching us is that there are developmental milestones that we go through in infancy. And the floor is really great because it's this nice, hard, stable surface. Babies are actually able to load certain parts of their body, whether it be the rib cage, the inner parts of the elbow, the parts of the knees, and that pressure system essentially puts this neurofeedback into our brains and helps us develop stabilization and really strong movement patterns. And so some parents will come to me and be like, oh my gosh, my baby's walking at 7 months, and they're super proud of this, right? Like, because their baby is walking much sooner than other babies are. And I kind of am like, oh, that's really great, but how about we slow that down a little bit? How about we get your child into reflex creeping positions and crawling, and they spend a little bit more time mastering movements that make them stronger at a young age, that further puts them, it sets them up to be into healthier movement patterns into their adult life. So yeah, I get that parents love to put their babies in the little bouncy seats, and they love to putting them in the roller chairs because, baby's upright, baby can see mom and dad when they're cooking, and they're happy and they're excited because they can really look around their horizon. But the baby is often, let's say 4 or 5 months old, and they're not ready physically to be in those positions of higher movement patterns, so to speak, because they're just not set up yet with proper core stability and hip movement, being able to put pressure on their feet before the arches in their feet are properly developed. And it's just setting them up to be in a more faulty movement pattern. And what's really neat about this too is I think in San Diego and maybe Denver, there's this company called Brain Highways, and they take children that are wetting the bed, struggling behaviorally, that are having issues with doing their math homework, and they've taken them and they put them into these different rehab positions, so to speak, that are early infant positions, and they have them crawl around and they play and whatnot. And very quickly, they are able to tap into some subcortical brain development. And through these movement patterns, the kids are changing their neuroplasticity and the way that they're using their brain. And all of a sudden, they're no longer wetting the bed, and they're able to pay attention and get really good grades in math. And the greatest thing about it is that we know now that movement is linked to brain development. And it's just a really neat thing to be able to say, hey, maybe I skipped these movement patterns, but I'm able to go back. And the kids love it. They're playing and they're spinning around, and they're really training their balance systems, and they love it. And then it's also paying off in their, their development, the way they do their homework, the way they can pay attention in class. It's just such a neat thing that movement, translates into such a higher brain function. If that answers you in a long story short.
No, that was excellent. It was really interesting too. I wonder, that has to be, like, I guess, what am I trying to say? You're more unique because of that? Because, I know a lot of chiropractors that seem to know some of, what did you call that? What was the term that you used in the beginning?
DNS, Dynamic Neuromuscular Stabilization.
That's wonderful, wonderful work. And I do agree with you also about, doesn't have to be that somebody comes in 3 times a week. It's more how well they're doing and how well the work is doing for them. And so, yeah, that's special for you. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Thank you. Absolutely.
So on the second part of the question, then, do we still have to finish the original?
Oh, yeah. So, now I want to dive in and talk about functional medicine and what that really means to the audience, because I think, I know from reviewing some of our questions that we're going to talk about today, that's going to be more of the focus on today's interview with me. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump into it if that's okay with you.
That's fine.
Great. So functional medicine or integrative medicine, they're kind of interchangeable terms, or even nutritional therapy, that kind of fits in there too. Functional medicine is essentially a term generally unknown to the public still. Like, people hear functional medicine and they don't really know what that means. And the term and field of functional medicine refers to something completely different than what we have now come to know as conventional medicine or the standard model of care. So to fully understand what functional medicine is, it's really important to contrast it with conventional medicine. So traditionally, let's say you go to your medical doctor, right, and they use drugs or prescription medication and hormones as therapeutic tools to deal with the dysfunction or the disease that the patient is having. For various conditions, this includes low thyroid, diabetes, high blood pressure, elevated cholesterol levels, and so on. The standard model of care is generally kind of all the same. Your general practitioner could decide to treat you, or they could elect to refer you out to a specialist depending on, is it a thyroid issue that you're having? Do you need to see a neurologist? Do you need to see a cardiologist for a heart issue? Whatever. So your general practitioner and your specialist have access to the same basic tool, and that's medication. The training in the standard model of care is to diagnose a disease and match that disease with the corresponding drug for treatment. And the standard model of care works really, really well in the case of an acute disease, a trauma, an infection, an emergency situation. Sadly, though, it fails miserably in the care of chronic disease that's affecting over 125 million Americans today. Chronic conditions that fall into these disease categories involve, allergies, digestive issues, yeast infections, hormonal imbalances, anxiety, depression. And these are things that most Americans suffer from on a daily basis. And we're finding solutions to these issues in the field of functional medicine. So instead of asking what drug matches up with the disease, functional medicine asks a really vital question that very few conventional doctors are asking, and it's, why do I have this problem in the first place? In other words, functional medicine looks to find the root cause of the mechanism involved with why you're having a loss of function in these areas that might be showing up, like why are you fatigued? Why are you tired? Why do you have low energy? Why do you need to rely on certain medications? And we're looking at why is this going on in the first place? And how can we deal with this patient and their disease label and treat the root cause and actually give this person health and vitality? Because I think people want to say, oh, I've been taking this medication or eating this way or doing whatever, and I've been fine the last 45, 50, 60 years of my life. But when you really dig down deep, they're like, I am tired. I do suffer from headaches. I want to be able to play with my kids, but I don't feel that well, or with my grandchildren or whatever. So, it's just really finding the root cause of what's going on there in the body and not treating the body as separate issues. I've taken several functional medicine courses, and what I've found is that, if you have a thyroid issue, it might actually be leading to you having digestive issues. And if you're not able to absorb your nutrients, maybe you're working into having neurological problems, dementia, Alzheimer's, cancers. What's going on in the body that's leading to these further, more chronic diseases. So between functional medicine and functional rehab, Carol, I think it's really safe to say that in my practice, I just like to get to the root cause and get super functional with what's going on with, any of my patients.
And that leads me to a really big point. From the minute that I talked to you to begin with, and now just listening to you again, you really have a lot of passion for your work. Can you tell us something about that? How you opened up your practice, or why you led down the path you are?
Yeah, so hindsight's always 20/20, maybe even 20/10, right? And so it's pretty easy for me to look back and say, oh, I know why I'm doing this. And for me, I believe all of this started when I was a child, and I couldn't figure out why some people needed medications to get through their day, yet, others didn't have to live that way. My dad suffered some debilitating back pain when I was in the 5th grade, and he's had a couple of back surgeries, and he's been on pain medication and lived his whole, most of his life in that state. My younger brother, he was suffering from headaches almost on a daily basis as a kid. And eventually he began having debilitating migraines to the point that he was prescribed a pill that he had to take 3 times a day for the rest of his life. And he could not live without this medication or else he would get a migraine. If he missed a single dose of that pill, he got a migraine. And there were a few occasions where I remember the migraines being so bad that Nathan was hospitalized. This just simply didn't make sense to me. So, and not only there, it doesn't end with just my brother and my father. I kept seeing diseases showing up in my family, that was cancer. I've lost 2 grandparents to cancer, heart disease. I've had an uncle that had a stroke and he was on dialysis and he passed away at a younger age. There's a lot of dementia and poor mental health in my family. And so, I was kind of looking at that as like why is this going on? And then really the final straw for me was when I went home for my 10-year high school reunion, and nearly everyone I saw, they were gaining significant amounts of weight. They looked dramatically aged and they just weren't feeling well. And they were beginning to be diagnosed with health issues like diabetes and high blood pressure. And to them, this was just the normal signs of aging. But we were 28 years old. I mean, I'm 31 now, so this was just only a few years ago. And, these people just look exhausted. They weren't feeling well. I had just completed chiropractic school and had just started working on my master's in nutrition and human performance. And I was just on the tip of functional medicine and finding out what this really was. And I knew I was on to something with nutritional therapy. And I wanted to help this community. This small town Missouri, Boonville, Missouri community, this is where I'm from. This is where my closest friends and family all live. And it really broke my heart to see that these people were living this way. And it started to spark my curiosity as to what's really going on. And, through social media, we're able to keep in touch nowadays a lot different than we were, previously. And I can just watch them and I see what they're posting about their health and, what they're struggling with. And so last summer, I decided to develop my Look Good Naked seminar series. And I taught it November 2015, so just almost a year ago. And I ended up choosing the Heartland YMCA in Boonville, Missouri. And I asked them to be the beneficiary of the funds we raised from doing the course and for them to just help bring together the community. And I've, since then, it showed them it introduced my way of thinking into their lives. And they've been the whole community's been super interested in what I have to offer. And so just kind of one by one, I've been working with people in that town as far as educating them about healthy eating and that food is powerful and that food heals. And so that's kind of where this all started, to answer your question.
And it had to be hard seeing your brother, when you think about things, you were talking about cause, and which is really my belief also as far as healing, that we really have to get to the root cause, and conventional medicine really doesn't go down that route, as too many of us know.
Yeah.
It had to be hard seeing him go through that, though, when how much was the medication really helping, not the cause? It probably obviously wasn't.
Well, it's funny, and to go to, to lead down into the path of more what you're saying is there's a couple of memories that really stick out for me. And my brother was, he was a really good wrestler, and he ended up he qualified every year. He was a state qualifier, and his junior year, he was going into his district tournament, and he ended up getting a migraine. And I was in college at the time, but, I would always drive and go watch his meets and support him. And his coach called me because I had managed the high school wrestling team and my university wrestling team. So I was, really involved with them when I was growing up. And the coach called me and he said, "Debbie, your brother's getting a migraine." And my brother would get these auras where he would go numb on one side of his body. Mm-hmm. He would vomit, all this stuff. And the coach is like, literally, it's the district tournament starts, this afternoon. I'm going to drive him personally to the tournament just to make him comfortable. And my brother was in so much pain that he was going to quit the tournament. And I got in my car, I drove there. I'm almost getting emotional, like thinking about it, because I had to sit down with him and have a really serious talk. Like, you're expected to place really high in the state tournament this year, and you're at the district tournament, and you're going to throw all this away because of the headache. Like, suck it up, go out there, beat your component, take your medicine, do whatever you need to do. So he takes Ymca. So when he gets a migraine, he can give himself a shot in the leg, and he hates it because he gets like 7 out of 9 side effects, like throat closing off, nausea, just all kinds of negative stuff. Well, anyway, so he listens, and he's in pain, and he goes out and he pins his opponent within like the first minute of the match. He tells my mom and dad, just take me home. And kind of long story short, thank God he ended up just sucking it up and going through that, because he ended up making the state finals that year.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, and that would have been something he would have thrown away because of this debilitating headache. And then just kind of fast forward, my brother applied to go to Annapolis, and he was going through all the interview processes, and he kept making it to the next level and the next level. And then they denied him because they said, if you have to take a medication 3 times a day, you would be a liability in terms of war, right? If you had to depend on this. And so he was denied going to Annapolis. And fast forward a few more years, I think it was last summer, he was like, you know what? I quit taking this medicine. Threw it to the side. After a few migraines, he was like, I just really have changed my diet, and he doesn't get sick. I'm not saying that he never has them. On occasion, he does, if he gets into foods that might bug him, upset his immune system or whatever. But no, he kicked the medication to the side and said, I'm not going to be debilitated by this anymore. I'm not going to live like this and be crippled by this medication. And so he's doing well without it.
Isn't that wonderful? See?
Yeah, totally.
I just think about all those years that, knowledge is power too. So, I had to ask you about that. I'm so happy for him. That's amazing. And that is just something about your character too, that you just took off, got in the car, and went to help. I mean, that's nice. That's even nice on a sibling level too, So, but anyway, as far as people that you specifically help, then can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, ironically enough, my work is starting to get a lot of attention, and it's recently gotten out internationally to, I have followers in Melbourne, Australia, London, some in Canada, Japan, and of course the U.S. So my largest patient population is currently coming from Missouri. And so, obviously I said I'm from that small town in Boonville, Missouri. I live in San Diego, but telemedicine is a great thing. Technology allows me to be in contact with these people. So I found that I'm attracting 30-somethings that are interested, usually initially in weight loss and increasing their energy levels. And when they're coming to me, then I'm finding that they're saying to me, oh, I'm seeing your social media post, and it's really standing out to me. I feel like you're talking directly to me. And I tell people, kind of my tagline, right, is I help people find the confidence to look good naked and live pain-free. And then from there, people are like, wow, what's that about? Like, I really want to know more about that. And, we kind of laugh and whatever, but if we have to be really, really specific, I've noticed my largest target audience tends to be 30-something females. They're young moms, they're working women. They're just starting to notice a decline in their energy levels. They want to keep up with their children. They want to make sure that they're in good health. Their focus is shifting. It's no longer about them as a single unit running around. Now they're a part of a family, right? And they have their kids that they want to take good care of. Or they're noticing this in their husbands. It's kind of like the moms tend to be the most interested in the health, and they bring the whole family along. But, the moms are seeing a little bit of an increase in their waistline or in their husband's waistline and their energy levels, and they're wanting to stop it now and get a handle on it before it gets, too out of hand. and they simply just want to feel good again. So, ultimately, I help any person that's committed to making their health a priority, whether it be focused in weight loss or raising energy levels or, shoulder and hip pain or whatever. But as far as the functional medicine goes, living a healthy lifestyle works for anyone at any age. So it doesn't matter who you are as long as you're willing to be committed to your health.
Okay, so the plus with that actually is on the functional medicine side with what I guess I'll call telemedicine or through technology today. That's how then people don't necessarily have to be in San Diego to get a chiropractic adjustment because you do all this other work that then people can be anywhere in the States or globally. Correct?
Yep.
Did I get that right?
Yep. So as far as the functional rehab goes, I really do need the patient in the office because I'm doing hands-on work with them as far, shoulder pain, whatever. I'm touching the tissue. I'm working with them. So in that aspect, yes, they need to be in the office. If they're not, I know plenty of people around the United States and even in some other countries that I can say, hey, if you need a referral for this, I know that this doctor has a similar mindset to me and I can send you to them. So there's that aspect with functional rehab. With functional medicine, it's really as simple as a Skype connection, a phone call, an email. Hey, what are you dealing with? What are your goals? What's some health history as far as, how many times have you been on antibiotics? Just anything along that line that we can get some questions answered. We talk about what medications they're on. And now, granted, I want to point out it's not in my scope of practice to ever advise a patient to take or not to take their medication. It's really their choice. But, if they start working on their nutrition and they start feeling better, medications tend to work better when the patient's in a good state of health anyway, or maybe they get better enough that they choose not to need it. So I just want to throw that out that I don't really advise on that. But yeah, with the telemedicine, it's just simply getting connected, getting the goals outlined, and then, designing a meal plan or supplemental nutraceutical therapy plans, and then the patient can work on that themselves from any location, and then they can reach out and check in with me through technology just to stay on track.
Perfect. I just wanted to get that clear. Okay, because I want people to find you.
Right. Me too.
I know. Okay, I'm going to ask you this now. What are your patients' biggest or most common problems, do you think?
Okay, so this is a good one. I'm going to say first and foremost, number one, it's a lack of support. So if a patient is coming in to work with me, they need support. They need a positive support system in their community with their significant other, from their friends, from their coworkers. We are but one person, so we can't be one way, at work and then another way at home. It really doesn't work like that. That's a big waste of energy, right? So when it comes to my patients working with me, I'm asking them for ultimate commitment. I'm really not about baby stepping into this because when it comes to food sensitivities and dietary issues and health, it's all or none, right? It's, your options are either to stay sick because you're going to cut corners, or you're going to go all in and make the appropriate changes and work my program as required to reap the benefits. When people want to change, they often find that it requires them to change their entire social circle. And that's a challenge. Think about when an alcoholic wants to stop drinking. Food is literally it's the same thing. When you want to get healthy, you have to change who you're around if they don't support you. So I had a patient last year. I had never heard of crabs in a bucket mentality, and he explained this to me, and I'll explain this for the listeners that don't know what that is. If you put a bunch of crabs in a bucket, they could easily crawl out, but the other crabs will grab that crab and pull it back in, and they'll each continuously do this to one another so that none of the crabs get out of the bucket. And so this is just a comparison. I see this happening too often with people. Someone wants to make a healthy change, and people fear that change, so they tend not to support the individual who's trying to better his or her life. And it really requires enrollment and support from loved ones for that person to be successful.
That's an excellent analogy.
Yeah, thank you. I know. When I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And everything I hear ends up going on my Instagram account, so you can always find good posts on there. So I have a couple of examples of this. I have wives, right, that will get in contact with me and they'll ask me for help. And then when I tell them what I offer, they'll say, but I need to get permission from my husband to invest in this lifestyle. And I mean, I get that, right? You're a family unit. Your finances, you guys have to be on the same team. But, they'll tell me that they really want it, but then they'll say things like, well, I want to do this, but my kids are just not going to eat healthy. My husband he's not going to eat like this. He's not going to be in on it. So, it's just simply not an option. And now they're trying to, make separate meals for themselves. And it really comes down to this, like, health is health. So, they'll be like, oh, well, my kids want to eat these chemically based fruit snacks, or they love this. And I'm, I heard another nutritionist say this. I can't take full credit for it, but she's like, do you hate your kids? Like, do you hate your husband? Like, and she's making a joke out of it, right? It's like to be funny, but it's like true. Like, if you want to be healthy, you need to bring the whole team along. And it's just kind of playing in from the support thing is just so strong. Like, people really need to be supported. Another example, I had a heavier set male patient, and he was suffering from knee pain and a major lack in energy, and he was excited. He went on my program, and he got out of contact. Like, when my patients aren't in contact or they're not asking questions, I already know that they're not on the program or they've slipped or whatever. And I later found out from this patient's sister-in-law that, within days, literally days of being on the program, his knee pain was gone. His family noticed that he was having, much higher energy levels, just some, better mood. It's just something they had not seen from him in a long time. And now this is not typical for a patient to lose this much weight, but he was more on the obese side. And within 2.5 weeks, he took off 45 pounds.
Wow.
Like, holy cow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, you would think that would be enough to really keep him honed in. And all this sounds really great, but he ended up quitting the program into the third week. It's a little bit more of my 30-day program. The third week can be a little bit more challenging. And, he was so close to finishing, but he felt defeated because, he lived alone and he was making his meals alone and eating alone. And it just, when you're alone like that and you don't feel like you have support, it gets really hard to follow through. And luckily now he's enrolled his brother, his sister-in-law, his niece and nephew, and everybody's all in to do it together. They're going to make their meals together, work the program, and have a support system.
Oh, how cool. That's really good.
Yeah, and everyone's going to benefit, and I'm so proud of them. It's super awesome. So, first and foremost, their biggest, one of the most common problems I see is the lack of support. But moving on, the second big thing I see is an emotional attachment to food. It should be as easy as saying, eat this and not that, right? But it's really not, because people make food, they make it mean something. A piece of cake is simply, flour, sugar, eggs, dairy, and other inflammatory ingredients. It's all mixed in. You bake it, you icing this thing up, and now it's a birthday cake, right? And it's little Susie's 5th birthday. So by social agreement, meaning we're going to make this cake mean something, and everybody in society is going to agree that it represents, joy and fun and happiness, right? So we've got this agreement system going on. And let's say that I have a patient and she's throwing a birthday party for her daughter, and she's so emotionally distraught over missing out on having a piece of that birthday cake. Or better yet, let's say she does have it, And then she gets so blameful of herself or makes herself wrong for falling off of her meal plan that she ends up falling off the wagon completely. And this is where my patients tend to get out of communication. And I already know something's up when they're not, ask me questions like I stated earlier. I can still work with this. In fact, the falling off the wagon or the slip up in the meal plan, that one cheat meal, it tends to give me, as the doctor, a lot of credibility, and my programs a lot of credibility, because let's say the patient slips and they eat something that they shouldn't, and then their body has a massive negative reaction to the inflammatory foods, and they start to see how powerfully food truly affects their health. I had a swimmer who was training for the Olympics, and she was a former Marine. I mean, just a super driven athlete, very strong mindset. And she emailed me, and she's like, Dr. Debbie, I had to work 12 hours at my desk. I had to miss out on my training for the day, and I totally flipped out, and I ate a Snickers bar, and then I ate another one, and then I said to hell with it, and I got some ice cream, and I went home, and my roommates had a bunch of pasta. So I was like, I'm going to eat that too. And she's like, and I felt super bad, and the next day I felt really horrible, and then my skin broke out with acne, and I realized what you're telling me to do was super meaningful. And I'm like, hey, it's totally okay. First and foremost, thank you for being in communication. It's totally okay that this happened. It's not life or death, right? We can turn this around pretty quick, and you don't have to be making yourself wrong for it, right? It's not good, bad, right, or wrong. It just is. So yeah, an emotional attachment to food is a very real thing, and I try to really be there for my patients so that they can text me, call me, email me, Facebook me, whatever, and say, hey, this is what's going on, and I can coach them through that emotional attachment. Yeah, so that's number 2. And then the third thing that I really see patients struggling with is this whole myth that, the excuse that it costs too much to eat healthy. There's this great video on YouTube by JJ Virgin. She's a well-known celebrity nutritionist. I absolutely love and adore her. I follow her. She's where I initially started learning all of this food sensitivity stuff from. And she actually went and cart stocked a few shoppers in her local grocery store. And she bought the foods they were buying, and then the foods she compared to what she wanted her more health-conscious clients to buy. And the neat thing is it ended up being around, like she did the daily, weekly, whatever, monthly savings and totaled it up. And it was a little over $1,800 per year in savings. That's a vacation, Carol, right? That's a lot of money. And, then you compare that savings. Well, let's compare it to the expense of sickness care, to the expense of medications and doctor visits. And, let's take that even further, and let's look at the decrease in work production, or, you're staying home because you don't feel well. When my patients get on the other side of feeling good, they're more focused. They make more money. They do better at work. It costs too much not to eat healthy, right? So when people present this like, well, health just costs too much, I'm like, then what are you expensing yourself out in sickness? Like, on that one, I'm like, give me a break, right?
Exactly. Think about the cost of the healthcare if you aren't healthy. Well, absolutely. It is a no-brainer. I have to say, give me a break along right with you.
Thank you.
So, yeah, absolutely. Based on that, then, can you tell us a little bit about your program more specifically? Can you give us an idea?
Yep. So, first thing, I try to initiate my patients into programs that, simply address diet, that are the less expensive in the healthcare realm of it. It's an introductory thing. I put my patients through a 30-day cleanse program. And when I say cleanse, I need to really state that a cleanse is not drinking liquid concoctions and starving yourself and destroying your muscle mass, which is a metabolic driver. you should never feel like crap on a cleanse program. That's totally missing the point. So anyway, I digress. But I put...
That's a good point, though.
Yeah.
Most people think that that's what you have to feel in order to do it. They hear cleanse, and it's like, oh, God, I'm going to feel horrible for several days.
Yeah, and that's just not, I'm really not a fan of that at all. My cleanse program simply means going off of pro-inflammatory foods, introducing the healthy stuff, and you start to feel great really fast. So anyway, almost everyone, actually everyone who truly does my program, I literally had to put an integrity clause in there. I said, if you're not willing to do this 100%, or you're going to cut corners, or you're going to change my program, then don't do my program, change my program, and then say you're doing my program, and then tell people that it didn't work. There are plenty of people out there that are going to benefit greatly, but they need to hear positive reviews, right? And it needs to be coming from the patients who really did the program, had integrity with it, did it as it was expected, and got the results. That's what, this is, like I said, I'm an all in. Like, we're not going to cut corners here. So anyway, I put the patients, I pull them off the top pro-inflammatory foods such as gluten, soy, dairy, eggs, corn, peanuts, sugar, and artificial sweeteners, to name the top 8. This allows their hyperactive immune system to calm down. Up to 90% of our immune system lives in our gut lining. People get confused when I say gut, so intestinal lining. And when you take these foods out and the immune system gets to calm down, people start dropping weight immediately. Their skin starts to clear up. They start to look and feel more youthful. Their aches and pains disappear. Years of headaches, adult acne, joint pain, allergies, sleepless nights, this stuff starts to go away like magic. Like, I literally tell my patients, like, you are going to have some food cravings. We do have to shift your taste buds and what you prefer. We have to make you stop craving sweet and start appreciating, spicy and fats and protein and all these, these healthier foods. And when they can get across the board around day 4 is when patients generally start to feel better. Now, I'm not going to say it's for everyone. I'm going to say probably 90%. But I do have patients that have other health ailments going on, and it takes a little bit longer. I had one girl that after the cleanse program, she's like, for the first 2 weeks, I literally wanted to cuss you. I wanted to tell you how I really felt. But she was in contact every day, and she's like, anyone can do anything for almost, for 30 days. So I'm not going to cheat, but I do tell you every day that I think about what I go home. I'm going to go home and I want to have this, but I'm dedicated, so I'm not going to do it. She's really fun to work with. I wrote an article on this girl and featured it on my blog. A lot of people really loved reading, what she had to say. It was entertaining. But anyways, again, I digress. So the whole program's designed to spoon feed my patients. I provide them with weekly shopping lists and recipes for their meals. Simplicity and preparation is what really gets these people to success, right? If it's too complicated, they're not going to do it. But if you can really explain to them why they're doing what they're doing and make it easy, then they can follow through with it. So anyway, to dive in a little deeper to this cleanse program, my patients are going to have a high quality protein shake every morning for breakfast. It's an absolute must for them to utilize my products. I work with a professional grade company known as Designs for Health. They design products that are only accessible for the patient via a doctor's referral, because these products are potent nutraceuticals with high bioavailability, meaning they're easy to digest and absorb. The products and nutrients actually do what they claim they're going to do. We work towards repairing the patient's broken down gut linings. This has suffered from years of insult from chemically processed foods, medication use, antibiotics, stress. And then, so it's a protein shake for breakfast. There's a detox soup and salad with their lunch and dinner. And both their lunch and dinner consist of really clean, lean proteins, healthy fats, high fiber from vegetables. A major plus to this program is I help my patients stabilize their blood sugar. I do not allow snacking between meals. When you combine protein, fats, and fiber with every meal, you hit all the winning hormones that keep you satisfied and full for 4 to 6 hours. Once blood sugar regulates and they take in the high amounts of the healthy gut healing foods, they feel so much better and they lose body fat very quickly. Carol, I'm actually, a new thing I'm going to start doing, I'm going to start making my patients video themselves when they first come to me with their complaints of how crappy they feel, because when they get to feeling good, they practically forget how unhealthy they really were in the beginning. So it almost shocks them to look back and see how far they've come, and it reminds them that their health is a choice and that they vote with every meal, with every forkful to the mouth. If they want to feel good, it's making the choice and knowing why they're doing it, and not eating to fuel disease, but actually eating to fuel their health. If the patient needs further evaluation beyond simple meal planning, I can order blood labs for specific food sensitivity testing, stool samples that evaluate parasitic activity, intestinal yeast overgrowth, and nutrient deficiencies. We can now look in to see, is gluten affecting your intestinal lining, causing issues like IBS, celiac disease? Is it affecting the skin and promoting and causing, rashes such as eczema and psoriasis? Is it affecting the brain, causing intention tremors or leading to dementia? Like, gluten-free is not just a fad; it's truly a really big deal. And we can correct nutritional deficiencies that are leading to anxiety and depression, and we do all this without the use of medication. It's really powerful.
Absolutely. Very thorough sounding. And I love the idea about the video.
I do too. I've got to definitely start doing that.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And very helpful. Okay, I know that we are really getting into some really good questions here, and I know that our time's getting a little tight here, so I'm just going to we're going to run through as many as we can, because you're just a wonder to be speaking with. So I want to ask you now maybe 2 or 3 of the most asked questions that your patients ask you.
Okay, for sure. So my patients absolutely want to know, how much does this cost? How often do I need to do it? And they want to know if I can help them. That's probably the most important thing to them, is can they personally be helped? So let's address how much this costs. Well, I just say to them, what's your health worth to you? I run a cash-based practice for a reason, and it's because when patients spend their hard-earned dollar on their health care, they tend to be way more compliant, and they work much harder at getting well. It attracts people to me that truly value what I offer and who truly want to work with me. When you have skin in the game, it makes a drastic difference in the level of commitment I see in my patients.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a big game changer. Also, the plans are tailored specifically to the individual patient's needs, so pricing is different for everyone. However, my average patient is probably spending around $250 to $299 for their 30-day program, which is going to include their meal plan and their designs for health products. If they need extra coaching or one-on-one consulting or labs, we work together on different pricing options for their specific needs. And then the second question, the how often do I need to do this? Most of my patients see the importance of doing this type of a cleanse program like this at least 3 times a year. It's not as if life doesn't happen and we don't retox, so to speak. So oftentimes they do it prior to a big event, like their wedding, a trip, a beach vacation, a reunion. It's some kind of event where they want to look and feel fabulous, and this provides them with the confidence, for just that. And then, the most vital question.
To interrupt you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I like that. Because that's exactly what happens.
Yeah, we live life. People want to ask me, they always want to know, what's your favorite cheat meal? And it's like, okay, if I said I never ate a bad food, I would be lying. And I'm not here to lie. Let's be real. If I go to a wedding, I'm going to eat some of the wedding cake. I happen to love vanilla icing, but I'm not doing this day in and day out, right? And I have the tools to get back on track after I have a small cheat. And, this is one of the biggest things that I point out in my Look Good Naked seminars. It's the cheat meals. It's people want to say, oh, well, I eat really clean during the week, but, I have a little cheat on the weekends or on the holidays. I actually counted up what that might look like, and I included, a weekend is really Friday through Sunday, and I counted the holidays, and, there's multiple holiday parties and whatnot, and I was downplaying this with those days adding up to being 40% of the year. 40% of the time they're cheating. That's almost 50%. That's a lot, right? So, anyway, so the biggest question the patients have is, can you help me? And the answer is, yes. Clean eating, avoiding environmental toxins, and getting adequate rest helps everyone. It's to the point now where I can be around people in public and I can literally see acne, and I think to myself, there goes a dairy sensitivity. I see psoriasis, and I think gluten skin. People tell me about their knee pain, and they tell me about their love for cheese and chocolate milk. Some of my friends come by my boyfriend and I's house, and they ask us for allergy medications because we have a pug, and they think that their allergies are from this dog. And I'm like, sorry, we don't have any. And by the way, you're experiencing a hyperactive immune system reaction from the inflammatory sausage, bread, the gluten, the cheese, the sugar, everything that you're eating on the regular. And they literally look at me like I'm crazy. Like, when it's, so the information's not always welcomed, right? The advice is not always welcome. The most interesting thing for me is that people will sometimes take a lot of offense when you point out ways that would absolutely 100% help improve their lives. But if they're not in the space for it, they don't want to hear that, right? But it doesn't make it good, bad, right, or wrong. It's just factual information that happens to be very true, and the science is there to support it.
Speaking of the science, it is also definitely a fact that if someone's not ready for something, no matter how good the program is, on some subconscious level or some level, it's not going to work.
That's the biggest thing.
They have to be on the same page. It's helpful. No question about that. Super
true. So, whenever I go out to eat with friends or whatever, I don't interject my information on them. I don't make them wrong for the foods they're ordering. I order clean, more cleaner food. And then if they want to ask me, then I teach, I educate. Other than that, though, I let people live their lives, and I try not to be, I think people sometimes are afraid to ask me to go to dinner with them. My boyfriend's mom, she's like, it's hard to eat around you guys because people probably think that you're judging them. And I'm like, I'm really not. I'm only here to help if they want it.
Nice attitude. Absolutely nice approach. That's funny. I can understand it, but it's funny. Oh, okay. Okay, so if we can go through some of these quickly, I want to just ask you. Now, calorie counting, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because that's be a big question and issue.
I just wrote a blog on this, actually, you can find that on drdebbiebright.com, and Strength Matters. They featured it as well to all their international readers. You can find it at realstrengthmatters.com too. And I'm trying to think exactly what I titled it. I think I called it is Calorie Counting, or the Science of Eating, Why Calorie Counting is Keeping Your Clients Fat. And I geared the article more towards trainers and stuff as far as in the Strength Matters community. Calorie counting is really just overall bad news for weight loss. It's really about addressing food sensitivities and food intolerance that makes a difference. There are programs like Weight Watchers and Jenny Craig, and they're all based on point systems that are kind of related to calories. And it's not working for people, because if you're going to say a person can eat a piece of cake and it's worth a very high point value, and then they're not allowed to eat again all day, there's hormonal issues going on and blood sugar problems, and it's just not working long term for these people. These programs have issues like this. If you break down the math of calorie counting, protein is 4 calories per gram, a carbohydrate is 4 calories per gram, alcohol is 7 calories per gram, and fat is 9. So when you start thinking that you could just take fats and alcohol out of the diet, which was the old school way of thinking, mathematically, it sounds right. You should be able to lose weight. But it's not about the number. It's about how the food is affecting your hormones. And it's about the communication that this food provides for your body that says, hey, store fat. Hey, burn fat. Hey, use me as fuel for exercise, or this food helps me sleep or keeps me awake at night. It's just playing a whole new ballgame. It's a whole new picture, and it's a new way to look at this. I've got a good example for you, Carol. I had a patient. She went through my program. She had really great results, and then she contacted me like a month or more later, and she's like, I did your program, and then I went on Weight Watchers, and I don't really know what to do. I feel confused because what you taught me really worked for me, but now I'm on Weight Watchers and the food you're recommending makes me score 0 points. And they're telling me that I need to be eating an X amount of points to have weight loss. And I'm like, oh no, this is not at all. I'm sure that those companies really mean well. I really don't think their intentions is to, not have their program work. But until they're willing to stop looking at calorie counting and start looking at how food communicates to the body, patients aren't going to have long-term success.
So, along those lines, how it communicates, then we have, like the food intolerances, the food sensitivities, the food allergies. So all of those are going to interplay whether someone's losing weight or whether they're inflamed or not, correct?
Absolutely.
And can you explain a little difference between them real quick, between sensitivities, intolerances, and allergies?
Yep. So a food allergy is what most people think I'm talking about when I talk about a food sensitivity. They're actually two very different things, in that a food allergy is an immediate, is a negative inflammatory immediate reaction to food. So let's say that a common one people recognize is like shellfish. So you eat shellfish, you have an allergic reaction, you need an EpiPen, you're going to the emergency room, right? It's like, have you seen the movie Hitch? When Will Smith, he eats shellfish or something and he like blows up and he needs all his Benadryl. Yeah, that's a food allergy. It's an immediate IgE-mediated allergy. And IgE is just it's a simple, well, it's not really simple, but it's a classification of the immune system. It's a very fast-mediated response, okay? A food sensitivity is a delayed response. So it's still an immune system upset, but the reason people struggle to tie in food with problems they're having, like pain, like acne, like psoriasis, like their nose running or having cold like symptoms, is because they don't make the connection between the food and the food sensitivity, because the food sensitivity is a delayed response. I mean, we're talking, it could be 72 hours, it could be up to 9 days, right? So if you're eating a food, but you're not reacting to it until days down the road, patients don't tie it together. That's why this is such an issue. And then food intolerance is simply just another phrasing that means food that you're reacting to. And I think people really understand that when they're like, oh, if I eat a bunch of pizza and drink a beer, I end up with constipation or diarrhea or bloating or whatever. And they know that their system simply doesn't like that, right?
Right, exactly. Excellent explanation of those three.
Thank you.
And what about blood sugar? How does that play a role in the diet?
So blood sugar is a really big deal. Controlling blood sugar is the key to being lean. It's the key to looking good naked. It's the key to having less mood swings and being more productive and having energy. It's really important to stabilize blood sugar. And I have my patients eat. They eat only every 4 to 6 hours with no snacking between. And people are like, 4 to 6 hours, like what? Like, I thought you were supposed to eat every 2 to 3 hours to maintain your metabolism to stay skinny. And that's totally not the case. That is not good information. If you're like a bodybuilder and you're wanting to put on muscle mass, then sure, you're going to want to eat more frequently. But if you are wanting to be lean to stabilize your mood and all the positive things I mentioned previously. You need to eat to hit all the winning hormones that allows your blood sugar to stabilize, that allows you to stay full for, 4 to 6 hours. So even if you're snacking on things like nuts and berries, healthy foods in between your meals, it still will spike your blood sugar. So your blood sugar goes up, the hormone insulin is released to try to, get the sugar out of your bloodstream and into your cells. But when insulin's in your blood, you cannot burn body fat. It's an anabolic hormone. It means it makes you bigger, right? So every time you eat, blood sugar raises, insulin goes in your system, you're now not burning body fat. So when you get the blood sugar to stabilize, it happens when you got to tie the proper foods together. Every single meal, whether breakfast, lunch, dinner, if you're having a long day, that's where I allow the fourth meal, the snack, so to speak, but all of it. You need protein, you need fat, and you need fiber. When you have all three of those, you hit all the winning hormones, you put all the puzzle pieces together, and you stay full for hours. And when it's really easy, if you're hungry at 2.5 or 3 hours in, you can look back and say, where's the missing puzzle piece? I had a salad with grilled chicken, but maybe I could have added some extra avocado or some extra olive oil and gotten that healthy fat and hit all the winning hormones.
So do you have any fruit at all in your program?
Oh, sure. In the smoothies people make, I give them options to tie in fruit. The issue with fruit is that people think it's like nature's perfect food. When people go on diets, they start eating a ton of fruit, and now they're adding all this extra sugar to their system, right? Yeah, so I really promote low glycemic index fruits like berries because they have lots of fiber in them. But yeah, I limit my patients to 2 pieces of fruit a day or less, to be honest with you.
Uh-huh. And is watermelon on which group? They're not good?
Watermelon tends to be a little more higher glycemic index. Mm-hmm. Yeah, more sugar.
I had to ask about that one. Okay. Anyway, what about sleeping? Is it true about the 8 hours a day really helps you lose more weight? Or if you don't, then you don't lose weight? Or is that...
Oh, gosh, Carol, sleeping, I'm glad you brought this up because sleeping is such a potent player in the weight loss game. It's a potent player in everything. It's a potent player in mental health, in depression, in anxiety, everything. So what I see across the board are people getting much less, like everyone every single night needs 7 to 9 hours. And I can explain that in a second why. But people really want to wear this badge, like that they are doing something super great by getting anything less and powering through their next day and let's stay up late and like, look at me. And I'm like, no, this is not good. Patients that are, let's take this further than weight loss. Patients that are suffering from depression and anxiety issues, like across the board when they do studies, they know all that these patients on antidepressants and having all these problems, if they would just sleep and like at good hours, like before midnight, right? Like it's a game changer. But what's happening with people who miss even one night of good quality sleep? Their cortisol levels, which is, it's like their stress hormone, their cortisol levels are really high. Then they start craving sugar because the body is needing sugar. It's needing an immediate source of energy to keep them going. So they're not craving, they're wanting Ben & Jerry's and pizza and a cheeseburger. And the reason behind that is because the brain is craving foods that will counteract the stress hormone, the cortisol levels. So they eat these crappy foods and it'll introduce serotonin to the brain and counteract the cortisol levels. And then their body's like, oh, now I feel good. I can get some sleep now. So from that aspect, I'm not always 100% against a bad meal. On occasion, if, you've not had good rest and you just need it, fine, whatever. Have your bad meal and get back on track. However, when you're sleep deprived, you immediately start storing body fat. You're craving bad foods. You're not going to be like, man, where's my salmon spinach, right? Like, when I have bad sleep, I don't want that. My go-to when I have negative sleep, I love gluten-free cereal with almond milk, right? It's a lot of sugar. That's the thing that I crave. It's just, right? Let's be honest here, right? So
Right.
Absolutely, Carol, 7 to 9 hours every single night, literally 1 hour or one night of bad sleep throws you into a negative spiral.
And you can see how just important the sleep is, too, for any type of health problem.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. And a brief rundown of the sleep cycle. In the first few hours, that's where you are getting your repair sleep for your muscles. I don't know about you. Well, I'm pretty sure this is a safe call. If I don't get rest, I literally ache the next day. I don't feel well. And then kind of into the later hours of the sleep cycle, that's where you start getting the memory repair, the brain function, the deep REM sleep. So it's, getting 5 hours is not beneficial because you're missing out on, rest that's either repairing your musculoskeletal system or rest that's helping your brain function. And it's so vital and it's so important. And just to throw in one more key factor, when people's stress hormones are really high, they'll actually say to me that they have trouble getting to sleep. The people that are getting to sleep but that are waking up in the night around 2 a.m. or whatever, it's usually because their blood sugar is crashing, and this is often related to alcohol intake. Like when you pass out from alcohol, you're not getting quality sleep. You might be asleep, but you're not getting deep rest. And if you're waking up in the middle of the night, just have a little bit of protein before you go to bed, and that should stabilize that and get you to sleep deeper all night.
That was a nice share.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, this is another key situation. People say that you need to exercise. Other people say you don't have to exercise. Do we? Don't we? What's your input on that?
Okay. So when it comes to looking good naked, right, you're gonna need both. However, diet is literally like 90%. So your diet needs to be in line, but then I don't want to downplay exercise. It's important. Like I said earlier, people have aches and pains and ailments because they're not moving. So some form of movement is going to be good for everyone. But if you really, really want to know the best exercise, like the biggest bang for your buck for your time investment, we got to start looking at the hormone system again. So all exercise is going to raise your cortisol levels, right? And this is your stress hormone, and it can either work for you or against you depending on what exercise you're doing. Cortisol can be the Jekyll and Hyde hormone because it can be your best friend or your worst enemy when it comes to fat loss. Long duration cardiovascular exercise increases cortisol, which increases storing body fat, especially around the abdomen, right? When you do burst training, such as sprinting combined with resistance training, weight training, you're going to stimulate your fat burning hormones. You're going to stimulate human growth hormone, testosterone. These are all things that are going to make your muscles look nice, keep you lean, get rid of the body fat, right? Chronically elevated cortisol can lead to muscle breakdown and fat storing. And this is where this gets controversial. I'm not slamming any one exercise or another, but if you're going on long distance runs, if you're spending an hour in the spin studio or on a bike ride or whatever, and you're doing lots of cardiovascular, hour-long training and whatnot, essentially, it's going to play against you in the long run when it comes to body fat. Burst training promotes post-workout fat burning. So sure, you're burning fat while you're on the treadmill, but the lower intensity of the exercise doesn't require any metabolic post-exercise repair. And because fat burning and metabolism are not enhanced post-workout, you get limited overall metabolic benefits. So let's put it another way. The more intense you exercise, the bigger metabolic costs you create when you're done. So burst training, like combining sprinting with weightlifting, it's your real ticket for fat loss and fast metabolism. So let me just put it this way. If you're running or you're spinning, you're doing long-term cardiovascular activity that puts you in the fat burning zone. That may sound really great. However, it's what you're burning during your workout that you end up storing post-workout. So if you're burning fat during exercise, say with long distance running or whatever, you're actually going to store body fat the remaining hours after the workout. If you're lifting weights and you're sprinting, you are burning your sugars, and therefore your body's going to work to replenish your sugars later, and it's not going to be worried about storing fat. Does that make sense?
My goodness, I never heard that explained that way before. That's pretty potent.
I know. It is very potent. People can they say they don't have time for exercise. You can get outside as long as you get in some burst training, some sprinting, jumping, whatever, and it totals about 4 minutes. So let's say you sprint for 15 seconds and then you rest. As long as your total time adds up to be 4 minutes, for people who aren't as athletically inclined compared to, athletes that are getting out there solid 8 minutes, whatever, more athletically. The thing about burst training is people don't like it because it's hard. It sucks, right? But you can do minimal amounts and you throw in your weight training. It keeps your metabolism going. You're definitely going to look good naked. You're going to win there, right? I just want to make sure that I said that all correctly because, it's what you're burning during the workout is what you're storing after the workout. And that's the biggest thing to take away. Yeah.
I heard that.
Yeah.
That's very contrary to what anybody thinks.
I know.
Oh, my goodness.
Science is out, though,
There's a subject for a book.
Yep.
Okay. That's really a good one. Okay, just could we ask now about the questions you'd like your patients to ask? Can we move to that?
Yep, so let's run through that. So let me see. I was thinking about the misconceptions. I got to get my head right here. Overall in general regarding healthcare, I want my patients to start questioning what knowledge and training their doctors have in nutrition and functional medicine. If a doctor is going to prescribe a medication, the patient has the right to ask what exactly it's for, what side effects it causes, and what alternatives are available to them. I want to see a healthcare system where the patient is educated and provided options. If they're given an antibiotic, they need to absolutely be advised to take a probiotic with it and after it. They need to be informed that the antibiotic will destroy the healthy bacteria in their intestinal lining. It will cause them to have intestinal yeast infections. They're going to experience issues like a breakdown in their digestive system. If they're prescribed a statin, why are they not also given a CoQ10 supplement? Statins destroy the energy production of your cells. CoQ10 helps rebuild that. If a patient's suffering from depression, they need to be tested for nutrient deficiencies instead of dosed on antidepressants. Patients have the right to demand better health care. It's really time for people to start asking and start demanding more. Here's a good example. My dad has been told he has high cholesterol levels. He was taking a statin because this was protocol in conventional medicine. He was feeling like crap. His energy levels were shot. He started listening to me. He began reading his own books about cholesterol and the importance of testing for particle size. He actually went to his cardiologist and took in his book and demanded to receive a particle size testing so that he could really know if his cholesterol was was good or bad, so to speak. In the cardiology center, no one had any idea what he was talking about. They had to call in another doctor, and he found one that finally said, oh, yeah, I've heard of that test, and he ordered it for him. We're currently awaiting the results. My dad's dropped diet sodas, his love for sugary foods, treats, ice cream. He's 62. The man literally has six-pack abs. I'm super proud. He's lost a lot of body fat. He quit his statins and started supplementing with CoQ10. I am literally so proud of him. And we're expecting great results for his cholesterol test. To kind of recap, I want my patients and prospective patients to start asking why to everything. Start questioning your health. Instead of accepting a medication or a diagnosis, start asking why your condition or ailment is happening in the first place and address the root cause.
Which is excellent. Absolutely excellent advice. Because a lot of people today that aren't really familiar even with, alternative care or options to conventional don't even ask that question.
Nope, they don't. They just accept it as this the way it is, and that I have this. They wear their condition as a badge. I have this, and this is the way it is, and it doesn't have to be that way.
That is another good point. When people say my whatever the condition is and my this, they shouldn't even own it.
No, and they do.
They shouldn't own it.
They totally own it. It's just a weird. I don't know. To be honest, I rarely have my patients walk out of my office with a specific diagnosis. Oh, you have plantar fasciitis, or you have a thyroid condition. I'm like, so what? Who cares? Let's move past that. Let's address it, treat it, find out why, change the variables, eat a healthier diet, and it goes away.
Absolutely. This has been absolutely excellent. I can see how working with you would greatly improve anybody's success for their health, their life, etc. But since we are talking about looking good naked and living pain-free, can you give us a little bit more information on that specifically in working with you?
Sure. There's one thing that I would like to touch on, and I think it's some of the misconceptions out there. If we have time to go there, are we good there?
We're running a little tight, but if you can attempt it.
Okay, we'll keep it short and sweet. So,
okay.
The number one misconception is that I'm involved. People think I'm involved in multi-level marketing or pyramid schemes with my product recommendations or the supplements that I push. Or people think that they're equivalent to what my patient can purchase in places like CVS, GNC, or Costco. The supplement industry, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and the majority of products made are not regulated. They're not derived from, high-quality products. These products are not bioavailable to the body, meaning the money the patient is spending is simply being excreted in the toilet. There's just flushing out of the system. It's not even absorbed. Most of these products tend to be pushed by people with zero nutritional background, who don't have a formal education in medicine or human anatomy or human physiology. I get that people mean well, and I really do, but functional medicine is powerful, and it needs to be practiced by those who have proper, understandings of how the body works. As a patient of mine, you're required to have a medical referral to have access to my nutraceutical recommendations. Professional-grade nutraceuticals work with the body's physiology around 80 to 85% potency, while pharmaceuticals work with the body's physiology around 90% and higher. This is where you run into the risk of side effects. I work with a professional-grade company known as Designs for Health, and their entire purpose is to put science first and provide top-quality ingredients with adequate testing, so they provide products that really get results. I want to move past this multi-level marketing scheme that people thinking that the quality of Look Good Naked or the brand Dr. Debbie Bright and everything I'm promoting, it's on a professional grade level. I really cannot stress that, my work is of the highest integrity, and it truly benefits my patients. Now, I have to remind myself not to be insulted when people assume that my recommendations fall into the same level as multi-level marketing or just the person next door pushing nutrition that has no real understanding of what they're saying. So as far as just having what is Look Good Naked, it's just top quality. Let's change the diet, let's change the physiology, let's really work with you and be open-minded and provide you the best healthcare that I can, and let's get the good results, and let's just make your life better. That's what Dr. Debbie Bright and Look Good Naked is all about.
Well, that was perfect.
Thank you.
And there's where you came up with that term.
Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely perfect. Okay, I wanted to ask you too, can you tell us a little about the Gerson therapy a little bit?
Oh, yeah. So So, you often hear commercials say, ask your doctor in regards to weight loss, nutrition, as far as diseases are concerned and whatnot. And I really need to stress that nutrition in medical schools is extremely limited, if not completely lacking. And, I think that this is changing. It's really great to point out that doctors know pathology and pharmacology really well, meaning the study of disease and the study of drugs respectively. But, when they don't have a good foundation in nutrition, it makes up less than 1% of the required curriculum in schools. I have doctors attend my Look Good Naked courses because they tell me that they've not had this training and they want to know more. I really believe that all medical professions are hungry to know more and hungry to find ways to help their patients. And in the alternative realm, I really want to point out that sometimes certain treatments are not allowed in the United States because it doesn't fit into their protocols. And when it comes to cancer treatment, there's a lot of information out about Gerson therapy. I know that they have a location in San Diego, but they're not allowed to practice clinically in the U.S., so they have across the border in Tijuana. Luckily for me, it's so close. They take stage 4 cancer patients that are, sent home to be with their families. They're told, we can't do anything else for you. The chemotherapy, the radiation, it's not working. Be with your family. You're going to pass on. And as a last resort for help, these patients seek out Gerson therapy. And it's really interesting because they take them into the clinic and they're not on any drugs. They're not on chemo. They're not on radiation. They give the patient coffee enemas, which people are like, coffee enema, what's that? It's just a different way to get the liver to detoxify. And they would treat the patient, 5-6 times a day, coffee enemas, detoxifying the liver, helping the liver produce glutathione. It's a potent antioxidant. The coffee enema stimulates the liver, which is your number one, your liver and your kidneys. These are the detoxifiers in your body. And if those organs are sick, then the patient will remain sick. So anyway, the glutathione is produced at 600 to 700% via the coffee enema. They juice organic vegetables. They feed the patient. They completely use nutritional therapy. And ironically, conventional medicine can't believe it, but these patients have stage 4 cancer patients, their tumors are going away. Their skin cancer is healing. They're getting well, and it's without the use of medication. It's when you give the body the ability to heal itself, it's an amazing thing. It really can do that. And Carol, the coolest thing that they found, unintentionally, was that other diseases were healing as well. Any kind of ailment to the body can't choose what kind of disease it hangs on to. It's just the body just gets well, right? Cancer heals, dementia gets better, thyroid problems, just anything you can name it disease-wise, it heals. The body doesn't choose to keep one disease over another. It just simply heals when you give it the ability to.
Because what it's really looking for is homeostasis, and it's going to do whatever it wants to in order to get there.
Exactly. It just needs a little help. It needs to remove those environmental toxins, the pro-inflammatory foods, and be given the nutrients that it needs to get there.
And not to bring up a sad subject, but it's almost like when someone's passing away and they go through what we experience also is horrid in order to watch somebody. But, I learned a long time ago that that's just the body's way. It's struggling actually to try to reach that homeostasis. So if somebody says, well, the kidneys are shutting down, the liver's shutting down, the brain, it really is just working its best to try to still hang on and thrive. It's just that we've put so much crap into our bodies and don't live a lifestyle like you're describing here that we bring so much of it on ourselves. It's just sad. I mean, it really is sad. Of course, the pollution isn't helping it either. The state of affairs of what's going on as far as toxins that we inhale every day, or eat, or touch, or drink, or
Oh, gosh, it's just everywhere. It's in household cleaners. It's in perfumes. It's in the water we drink. It's everywhere. I made a social media post. I caught some flack on it. I said that disease is a choice, that your health is a choice. And people, it may not have landed in the best way with some of my audience, some of my followers, because they were like, that's offensive and stuff. And I'm like, the best way to look at it, the simplest way is if you take a person and they smoke and they end up with lung cancer, people kind of go, you sort of had that coming. It's still sad. It's still emotional, right? But they sort of knew that was very likely going to happen. Well, let's look at patients that end up with leukemia or, type 2 diabetes or whatever. You've got to trace the steps back. The coolest thing that I'd ever heard recently was that they're taking lupus patients and they were able to look at old blood samples and go back up to 9 years and see 9 years prior to the patient ever feeling bad, that the signs were showing up in their blood work that early on.
Absolutely. That's fascinating.
Yep. So you really do. Health really is a choice, and you choose every day to be vital and to, live a good quality, healthy life, or to vote for disease. And it's sad because people don't really realize that they're choosing because they're not educated, and I really want to see this change.
This is a good start for you, too.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And along those lines, is there a technique or tip you think you could share with us that somebody could implement now, any of the listeners?
Well, number one, let's just get a good night's rest tonight, right?
Right.
It starts there. Start fresh, get a good night's rest, and, align your goals and get after it. But the biggest thing I want the listeners to walk away with is that it is so important to be open-minded. There's so much out there with new science, new approaches, holistic, alternative therapies, and they're doing a really great job, these practitioners with their patients. But ultimately, it comes down to the mindset of the patient. They're either in and they believe they can get well, and they choose, they make the choice to vote for their health and to step by step implement the ways to live a healthier lifestyle, right? It's a way of being. So just be open-minded. Just, don't knock things. If somebody makes a post on social media or whatever and it doesn't fully resonate with you, instead of knocking it or being aggressive to that practitioner, why not ask them? Why not start doing research and start looking a little deeper? There's more there. People are just trying, us doctors, we're just trying to create awareness. We want to help patients. We mean well. And it all comes down to the mindset of the patient. They're going to choose it.
Absolutely. Mindset is extremely important. Okay, well, as our time has definitely been excellent and it's drawing to a close, can you tell our listeners how they can best get a hold of you?
Yep. So Dr. Debbie Bright is totally becoming, I'm working on branding it. There's a lot of changes going on. So as of right now, the best way to get a hold of me while we're working on all the social media and website layout is to simply email me directly to drdebbiebbright@gmail.com. That's DRDEBBIEBRIGHT@gmail.com. I'll get your message. Email me any questions, whatever you have. I'll definitely be in contact. I try to 24 or 48 hours when I'm busy. I try to always get back to my patients as quickly as I can. You can also find my blogs published with Strength Matters at realstrengthmatters.com. I run a nutrition column with Boonville Daily News. You can find them online. We publish something out every Monday. On my personal website at drdebbiebbright.com. And you can also look for, I'm getting ready to start my very own podcast, Carol. We're thinking Dr. Debbie RX, prescriptions for physical and nutritional medicine.
I love it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's totally fitting, right? So that podcast hopefully will be up in the next 6 weeks or so. It's just getting, everything aligned and getting this all put together. Like I said, we're really working to make Dr. Debbie Bright a brand and just getting everything out there. So reach out to me via email, and I'll be in contact.
Perfect. Well, I want to thank you so very much for everything. This has been extremely helpful and useful, and hopefully you'll join us again soon.
Absolutely, Carol. This has been a lot of fun. I think this is a great way to get the information out to listeners. I'm so happy that you invited me to be on the show. I've had a great time. Thank you.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure, and I know the listeners absolutely enjoyed this as well. And so to everyone, I want to say my normal. Here's to what makes your hearts happy and your soul smile. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.